Minister Zweli Mkhize, I thank you for your time on Political Capital. Minister, I would like to start by looking at the broader election debate, if you will. For most people who are looking at the forthcoming elections, they will judge the work of the African National Congress over the 25 years through the quality of their lives. As the African National Congress, how do you feel you've done in the last 5 years with regards to improving the quality of citizens on the ground?
Well, I think it would be difficult to just look only at 5 years because everything has been incremental and everything has been built on top of what has been achieved. And the main issue here is that the major focus of our government had been to look at trying to create political stability and create an environment where investments should be possible. That we're able to achieve, and over the period we're able to get a very good reasonable growth at about 5%, and that helped us on the one side to accelerate on service delivery. So there are many people who had didn't have enough, we didn't have access to water, sanitation, electricity, that actually suddenly got a whole lot of that. And that for us is a major improvement. And so if you look at the services, you have to look at it in that context. Now, obviously, the main issue over the past few years has always been about the interface between our local government or our public representatives and our communities. And some of the demands of our people are, completely, primary demands where people never had water, never had roads, never had electricity. But a number of others are relative. They've actually seen that housing was provided, but suddenly they want more of that. They've seen water, but now more people have settled, now it's not enough. They've seen sanitation, now it's not enough. Then the problem of challenges of lack of communication, where people have a mistrust and where people are having challenges of corruption, which has come up, and also leaders who don't spend time explaining issues to communities and creating a gap between them. Those issues have also come up. But underlying all of this is issues of poverty, which is very intractable at the moment, unemployment, which is still rising, and an economy that's not behaving, that's not growing so well. So that package as well creates a difficult situation.
Minister, for the people that you speak about that didn't have services like water, like electricity and other municipal services, I can show you equally the same amount of people who have had the quality of their water and the quality of their municipal services go down over the last 5 years. Your predecessors have not done you any favor. Nepotism is still rife within local municipalities, corruption, lack of competent skills to run municipalities, and therefore you have persistent issues that plague the tender and procurement regulations in this country. We want to know that you have consequence management. Why aren't we punishing people? Why do people just end up just moving from one department to another?
Well, firstly, we have decided on that one, on municipalities, we put a stop to that. So we've got a database. Anyone who's been charged or removed from any position of authority in the municipality will actually be subjected to a database that will stop them from being employed by another municipality in the future. And we have actually stopped a number of municipal officials from being appointed at such a level. That area it bites now. Then there's another aspect where we've actually amended our Municipal Systems Act and Municipal Structures Act in such a way that now any forensic investigation that's been done does not just lie and gather dust in the shelves. There actually is a timeline within which that must actually be submitted, so that those disciplinary committees must be set and so on. So going forward, there's not going to be anyone who's been implicated in a report that the report will not be tabled for the municipal public finance audit committee to actually take action. We have actually zoomed into the issue, and COCTA is overseeing at the top whether in fact the investigations are being followed or not. We've actually incorporated into COCTA some expertise from the Special Investigation Unit who will go and look at the reports that we receive and decide whether in fact it was enough just to get a disciplinary process or whether it's necessary to take the matter for further criminal investigation.
Minister, I'm going to stand up for the law enforcement authorities in this country, right? We all want them to prosecute all these arrays of allegations and investigate them. And I don't think that is humanly possible. Therefore, I think there must be internal processes within government that can hold people to account and in a faster time than there has been. I mean, to this day, we still don't have official punitive measures from government about any of the implicated parties that took municipal money and invested it with VBS. We've seen people step aside. We've seen people get away from the bigger picture, as it were, but we haven't seen punitive measures from government. You are government. Surely you are able to do this.
Well, I think we must grant a positive comment where it is due.
Okay.
Firstly, all of those municipalities have had a forensic investigation in all 3 provinces, and that is positive. Secondly, on the various municipalities, they've already been actioned by the MPACs. This is the Municipal Public Accounts Committees. They have actually started calling on mayors to step down. They've started suspending municipal managers. Yes.
We want to know why it's a process, Minister.
No.
We want to know why isn't the ANC even, as the ruling party, these members are beholden to the party.
Let's not jump around. Let's deal with one issue at a time.
Okay.
Let's deal with the process on the municipal side, okay? The government side. So that is going on. Then that process must now be subjected to a proper investigation. There's no way you can actually, just act on someone without an investigation and so on. So that has to go to courts. In a number of areas, the ANC has stepped in and called on some of the people to be called to step down. As the ANC now, that was announced, that is separate. There, the ANC is not saying you are guilty or not. The ANC has just said this is too much, there has been too much money lost, and this has been too irregular to accept, and therefore would like certain people not to be included in the list, and now some of them have not been included in the list. So I think we must grant the ANC that yes, maybe it's not enough what has happened, but in fact that already action has been taken there. So I don't agree that nothing has been done completely. Yes, the processes might drag a bit longer than what we would like to see.
Do you feel that people on the ground actually notice these incremental measures that you put people who are implicated under? We, I think, as the public that has been under the culture of corruption for a while, I think we're looking for a broad stroke, sweeping, definitive action, and I don't feel that we have it. And I'm speaking for the layman who is thinking and far away from the bigger picture and thinking, why can't they handle the situation? Why can't they curtail it?
But you've got a commission that's been set up, which is looking into the issues of state capture. It's coming up with information that even the police didn't have. And so how would you have got that if we didn't actually get, as an ANC government, to say, let's move and get some action here? You've got a commission that's going on the PIC. There are processes going on at that level. All of this is some action that's going on. But when we deal with the VPS, you've seen people actually being removed from lists. You've actually seen people being removed from positions. We're waiting for people. There are some areas where there's not been action. For example, we're talking about the Dr. Ruth Mumbati region. We actually said last week, we're insisting now that they must actually take all of this to their council and take the necessary action. Now, what I think you must be able to notice is the turning tide, where the tide is turning to be much more sensitive on issues of corruption, where we as ANC have been accused of acting too slowly, and there was a point at which we were acting on the basis of what the constitutional rights demand for individuals. Say you must be guilty, proven guilty, otherwise you are in a court of law and so on. Now, our Integrity Commission has stepped in, which was a decision of our organization as well, to say, let us also look at whether it is important for individuals to step aside if we think that the impact of the allegations is too damaging, even before we've got proof of it. I think all of this is part of society has also assisted the ANC, because people have actually been upfront to raise the issues, to say, ANC, we need more action on this. If you go back in 1994 and you did a survey, the issue of corruption was probably number 10, 13 or 15, whatever. It was not an issue. It was housing, it was peace, it was, all of those issues of water, etc., etc. Right now it's gone up. It's amongst the top 3 of the issues. Unemployment, crime, corruption. These are some of the top issues. So we have to be responsive as the party, as the government, and I believe that we've actually turned the corner.
Right now you're seeing to be going through processes, through the motions, as it were, as the African National Congress. We're not really seeing you, with the same renewal that you guys told us about following Nasrec. I mean, we were expecting the Ramaphoria that was there from the Nasrec conference has waned. I am sure as the national executive, you can see that it is running thin on its capital. How do you get that back except by being seen to be decisive? And if President Cyril Ramaphosa needs a majority, some 60+%, to be able to enact his reform agenda, what happens if he doesn't get it?
Well, I think we must also give President Ramaphosa credit. There's quite a lot of things he did. I mean, the commissions that we're talking about are the best process of being able to deal with these issues. And when he came in, he made some changes, and I think somebody must credit him that he actually did make changes. He's actually gone out to mobilize the public opinion and got people to feel that we're all South Africans and stronger, and where there might have been shortfalls, he's been open to say where there are weaknesses, we accept that and we'll try and do amends. And so I think we need to accept that President Ramaphosa has done quite the best that could be done under the circumstances. When we met with the business people and investors and all of the job summits, we actually found that the people, particularly in business, the confidence is growing back, and even the international community, everyone, the confidence is growing back. Even generally, South Africans, they have a feeling that things are turning around, because people are not saying that you're going to solve everything at a go. They just want to have a feeling that you're listening, you're correcting, you're moving on, and you actually you're taking the country forward. Now, we are campaigning for as much support as is possible. We're not going to now start speculating what happens if we get less than that. Why? We're actually campaigning for more.
We want to know that you'll be able to enact this reform agenda, even if you are short of the 60% majority.
No, but who said 60% is an issue? We didn't say 60% is an issue. We have a program that comes from our conference, and our conference has said, let's go and unite South Africans. Let's go and rebuild the faith and trust between government and civil society and business. Let's go and help to build the economy together. Let's go and grow the numbers of jobs for South Africans. Let's actually deal with the cancer of fraud, of corruption, and of state capture. All of this thing came from the ANC conference. We've got that president and the leadership have got an instruction from that conference, from our people, from South Africans, to change South Africa for the better. And we can assure you that we will do everything to take the country in that direction. And 60% or not, that's not our call. Our call is we're asking for the most possible, the highest possible voter turnout. We're also asking for an overwhelming majority. In Europe, in some of the countries, the governments that are not running on 60%. They're running on 25%.
But they enact this reformist agenda that they want. Like it or not, for good or bad, Macron is doing it.
You are comparing things that are not comparable. France has been a democracy for 200 years. They're still having problems today. They all were having a big problem with 300,000 in Europe, 300,000 immigrants. We have almost 3-4 million people who have come into this country. We have to carry all of that together. And we need to understand that there's one way of trying to transform the country. There's another way of trying to help the country to equalize in terms of the backlog of infrastructure and so on. There's an issue of income inequality. There's an issue of grinding poverty. There's an issue of the glaring poverty and inequality between Alexandra and Sandton, something that is actually creating a very difficult thing to manage. I think we must give the ANC government credit. They've got the ANC, we've got our own weaknesses, but there's been a lot of effort. And certainly President Ramaphosa is trying his best.
We must give them credit, and we must equally give them criticism where it's due. And this is part of that criticism. And part of the criticism, for instance, when I go back to the list, is the fact that it wasn't the motherboard, the NEC, that made a big song and dance about that list. It was first the veterans and the stalwarts of the movement that made it such a thing that the NEC had to have a special meeting this week. So would we be here if it wasn't for the veterans?
No.
Okay.
No.
Enlighten me.
No. That's not the issue. Firstly, the ANC does not necessarily announce all these discussions and its conversations as well as its resolutions. Okay. The decision to look into the issues of integrity and the image issues were discussed in Joburg, in an NEC meeting in Durban in January when the list was tabled. The fact that we didn't talk about it doesn't mean that it's not being managed. That's where the decision was taken. And there's a whole lot of other things that had to be taken into account to correct the list. That process is going on. Now, if the veterans decide to go public about it, doesn't mean that the matter was not an internal discussion of the ANC. It doesn't mean. It just basically means that the veterans thought this was the time to raise the issue in public. We could all have been out there talking about it, but we felt we're managing the process, so there's no point in going out and making a statement as though we're controlling the processes. The Integrity Commission is going to work on this matter, and let's wait on the outcomes and take the matters forward.
Minister, when we say service delivery, we're judging the government of the day. And the government of the day and the ruling party, the governing party in South Africa, is the African National Congress. So I'm going to ask you, how is voting ANC voting for service delivery?
Well, I think if you look at the history of the country, you will notice the extent to which service delivery has actually improved in terms of the housing opportunities, in terms of access to water that's gone up to as late 80s, in terms of electricity, which has also gone up to over 79%. And all of these are the issues that we are looking at. But we're saying we are aware of the weaknesses, we are aware of the backlogs, and we are saying we're committed to correcting all of that. And in a number of these municipalities, as we're talking now, for example, of the ones that I said were dysfunctional, 87 of them, of those 25 of those municipalities are no longer on the dysfunctional. Yes, we've actually assisted them. In some of those that had monies taken away, that would have had monies taken away, we've reduced the amount of money that should have been taken away to be removed from that particular municipality. We've actually reduced it. It's the lowest amount of reallocation if you look at the municipal infrastructure grant compared to the rest of the other years. Some of the municipalities, for example, we talk about Northwest, Disobosha was a putrid. You went all over the street, everything.
Most of the Northwest resembles that.
Yeah, well, it does, but there's quite a lot of changes that is going on there. And so that one in particular has improved so much that is actually 93% of its grants are being spent. So I'm saying to you, we're seeing turnaround. It's taking a while, but we're seeing the turnaround. What's important is to insist on accountability. And we are insisting that those who are not accountable, there must be actions on those. The leaders must take responsibility for the wrong things that are going on in their own municipality.
So voting the African National Congress in terms of service delivery would be voting for on hope, a hope for the future, that you will turn things around.
It's a hope, but it's also actions. There are things that are taking around.
Minister, and I must commend you. Over the last 25 years, you've done well, improving the quality of access to electricity, water, basic services and such. But also, like I say, we've seen things and municipalities regress. When I was growing up, I grew up under Mkhize government, which had a lot of infrastructure, and that infrastructure seems to have not been maintained, not improved, just maintained, so we can get the same service that we used to get, the same quality of service.
For a municipality, the fundamental problem is when you've got to decide how much money you're going to use to spend on those who never receive the water, the sanitation, and create new access for them. And then how do you balance that? with the ones that have got that have had all along that need it maintained at a particular level. So you will find that money will go out to build a road in a township, and then that gives you a pothole in the city. That issue we're not saying is the correct way. We're simply saying we must find ways of being able to balance these two. Because when the best is to be able to maintain what we've got and expand to new services. But the resources have to be balanced on the basis that, you know, you need your municipality to be able to have their own rates so that they're able to raise their own revenue. And of course, we want them to be well governed, and that where there's corruption, they must deal with it so that there's no theft of the money that exists, that's existing. There are municipalities that have regressed where they were having good revenue sources, but they have actually regressed. And we want to deal with those. And we're saying the interventions from government are about that. And we're insisting on consequence management. There must be an example made of those who have shown that they're not doing well. That's why there's been an amendment of the Public Audit Act, because we can now combine to actually act if we think that they didn't act properly, and we can take them to a point of saying you should take responsibility, and then of course action must be taken.
That consequence management I would have loved to see yesterday. But since I'm voting on the 8th, what do I take with me?
Well, by the way, let's not talk as though there's not necessarily been a consequence management. There has been quite a lot.
Okay.
I can tell you now, when I looked at the figures, about 1.3 or so, 1.3 or 1,300 people who have actually been dismissed. I can take you through the whole thing. You know, those were dismissed for fraud, for corruption, for theft, for impropriety. Yeah, that you can make available. Actually, it's not like it doesn't happen. It's just that people focus on specific ones where they would like to see why is there no action here. So when the process is dragged, it creates an impression that no action is being taken. I accept it, that we should have actually seen a lot more action. Yes, I agree with that. And I'm saying that we must move in that particular direction. But when we say so, we must understand that anyone who gets charged, they'll take you to court, they'll then bring their lawyers, they'll delay their issues. So some of the cases disappear in that, and therefore they don't seem to be action at that. But in fact, there is action. It's just that I think when people say it's not enough, you can't argue. It's not enough. We must try and move.
When one senior ranking ANC official is alleged or implicated in improper conduct, corruption, theft, stealing, we aggregate that to the African National Congress. And as much as you want us to aggregate the efforts of the president, Cyril Ramaphosa, in trying to turn the story around, I want to know that you appreciate the two competing factions, that to most people the ANC is bad, and to some people the ANC is turning it around.
Well, firstly, let me say, when one member was part of the leadership does something that is wrong, it's not just the general public that thinks very negatively about the organization. It's the organization, its members as well. Everybody will object. They will raise the issue inside. The ANC say, no, but we don't like that kind of behavior. So I don't want us to get an impression that when there's an objection on the conduct of one member, it's non-ANC members who raise the issue. It's actually, in the first instance, those ANC members. And when society is impatient, we accept that society will be impatient. But it's not their responsibility to wait for all the answers. For them is to see the action. So again, I don't think we can criticize society for that. And I think that you need that pressure so that we must be able to keep moving, because the issue is to move towards the best available, ideal kind of situation. So I don't think we can criticize our people for the idealism of wanting to have the cleanest, government, no corruption, high integrity. I don't think that we must complain about that, because that's the best that we all want to achieve.
And that's what the ANC aspires to.
The ANC aspires for that as well. So I don't think we want to object to that. We're just simply saying we have to explain why we have not reached that point. That's all we do. We explain why we couldn't reach that point. So if there's a delay with the processes, we must explain that that's a delay. Not because we are saying we don't believe that things need to move in that direction. We're just simply saying if there's a process, there's a delay. For example, if something gets to happen now and you raise an allegation, we say, no, but put it to the police so that the police can start the investigation. Then the police will start the investigation and say, okay, wait for that process. Now, it doesn't mean that that process on its own, you could have pushed it faster than what it's able to do.
Do you think it's a possibility that the voters could punish you again?
Well, that's why we're out there to explain, because people are asking us these questions and we're trying to explain to them why some of the things are moving slowly.
But Dr. Mkhize, we're looking for actions, not explanations.
I agree with you on actions. We agree. If everything could be done quick and closed tomorrow, we'll all be happy. But let me tell you something. There's something that the ANC cannot do on a process within the justice system. If you are going to have a person who gets charged on the basis that the ANC said, deal with this one quickly, I'm telling you that matter will be in court and will be thrown out the following day. So there are limits that we have to respect of the rule of law, of the justice system, of the independence between the separation between the party and the government. So we have to be able to separate those. And when we explain that, it's not an excuse for the ANC not acting. It's an explanation to why what we both agree about is not happening at the speed which we would like to see happening. That's all we're doing. We're not actually arguing that we shouldn't be insisting that someone should have been fired. We shouldn't have insisted. Sometimes there will be other factors and information that the government or the president or the ministers will have, which the public is not privy to, and they may not be able to share all of that. So you see things delay. You see, so sometimes you will find we've had a case here, just recently. Somebody gets charged. It's headlines. Next thing, the case is withdrawn. Now, you're not going to go and ask them day to day what happened, why did this, why that happened. But someone will turn around and say, yeah, but you charged somebody, but now you have stopped the charge. As though ANC, police, prosecution, court is the same thing. We always try and make that distinction. But when we say so, I think we need to always maintain that when we came out of that Nazareth conference and we spoke about the new dawn, spoken about renewal, we were talking about all of us recommitting to our values of a non-racial South Africa, of equality, of unity, of clean governance, of integrity of leadership, of all the things that we hold dear as South Africans.
Dr. Mkhize, I wish you all the best in your endeavor, in your party and your national objectives. And your win is our win. Therefore, I can only wish you good luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I thought you were going to close by saying, now I'm going to vote ANC.